What's up, guys? This is Adi from Thedos International, and I'm here with a very special guest for a fun interview that we're doing. This is Matt Davies from the Forest Focus podcast. He covers everything regarding Forest. If you are looking to learn more about our sister club over in England, I suggest that you guys give him a follow. There's a lot of great information that comes out of that podcast, so we can learn a little bit more about what's going on with our friends over in England. Matt, how are you doing today?
Good. The sun is out here, so yeah, it's a good day. I'm good. How are you?
It wasn't until I actually went to London, or technically last year, that I really learned about the forever overcast that's in London. So you don't really understand that until you're there. But thank you so much for joining me again. Can't wait to talk to you about all things with your project and for Forest as well. Matt, as we get started, we like to learn a little bit about the guest first. So we would love to learn about not just your journey with football growing up, but also how you came to do this, how you came to start the podcast, how you came to start to follow Forest.
Well, I started to follow Forest when I was 8, so I'll give my age away. That was 1991, the FA Cup semi-final. Ironically, because we've just played an FA Cup semi-final, so hopefully we've inspired another generation through that, even though we lost. But we played West Ham in the FA Cup semi-final, won 4-0. I didn't really support a team at that point. All my friends and my relatives supported Wolves. I didn't want to support Wolves. That's where I grew up, around that area. So I just latched onto Forest and supported them ever since through some good times, but mostly lean times until the last few years. And obviously, we'll get into that around the Marinakis family investment and what's followed. I think, like every kid, I wanted to be a footballer when I grew up, and very swiftly realised that wasn't going to happen, obviously. So I decided I wanted to work in football, and the next best thing at that point I thought was to be a football journalist. So I was a journalist until last year for 15 years, I guess, working as a news reporter, then a sports reporter. So I worked for the local paper, doing different sports, cricket, ice hockey, things like that. But sports don't really thrive in Greece. There's not too much ice around. I know you have a lot of basketball,
No.
a lot of other handball and stuff like that. But yeah, I covered those, and I also did a Forest podcast for the paper for about 4 years. And then right at the end of 2023, I left and set up on my own, in a sense, in that I do all the boring work and arrange everything, and fill in all the invoices and tax returns and all that stuff, but with the same people who I did the podcast with, who work in different jobs and help me out. So it's a group of mates and a group of 4 or 5 ex-players who played for Forest from going back to when we won the European Cup in the late 70s and 1980, all the way through to as recently as 2016, I think. A couple of guys played around that era, and then broadcasters come on and journalists who I've known through my old job. So there's probably a collection of about 20 people who are involved, with a core group of 5 or 6, and then we come out basically daily. Now we're a Premier League club. There's so much to talk about, as I know you're sure the same with you guys with Olympiacos. So it's just, that's my job now, doing a Forest podcast, which feels pretty wild, but it's a lot of fun as well.
And of course, with Champions League, there's a lot more to talk about. Knock
Absolutely.
on wood, of course. I have faith in you guys. I think you're going to do it. But assuming that you guys stay in that top 4 position, top 5 actually, because of the league rating, you guys will be there, and you'll have plenty to talk about. Different looks from different teams across Europe. It'll be a lot of fun stuff to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah. We were recording this just before we play Brentford. If we win that, I'm super confident. If we lose that, I'm more 50-50, but it would be incredible for the club to do it. I mean, our European experience is really mixed. Obviously, like I said, we won the European Cup, and then we didn't really play in Europe a lot for the next 30 years or so. So if we can get back there, having seen, Olympiacos win the Conference League and things like that, and you've played in the Champions League for years, for us to get a taste of that would be incredible for the club and the city, for sure.
It absolutely would. Let's take it back a little bit to your time as a fan, and a journalist, especially when the Marinakis family took over. What was that transition like for you when they took over and then the journey in championship to eventually get promoted to the Premier League? Because I know from the Greek end, from the Olympiacos fan end, I still remember the day the investment was made, and everyone was like, "Well, what's this going to mean for Olympiacos? What's going to happen?" Going through the journey as an Olympiacos fan and watching Forest's success, especially in the last couple of years, and then seeing how the club has changed and maneuvered, and then now we have Rio Ave in the group. Now there's a Sao Paulo academy in Brazil, which is going to get added to the mix with Edu, kind of running everything. So, how has this been as a transition for you, covering Forest with everything that's been going on the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, in the years building up to the arrival in 2017, it was pretty tumultuous. We had an owner called Nigel Doughty, who was a very successful local guy who did a lot of good work. Couldn't quite get to the Premier League for various reasons around. I mean, almost everything comes down to recruitment, but there was lots of other
Yeah,
stuff, and just didn't quite happen. Then he died suddenly in his 50s, just working out in his gym one day, and that was really awful, obviously. Then we were bought out by the Al Hazawi family, who they've been involved in football in Kuwait, but it's a different world in this country. And they came in with a lot of hype, a lot of hope, pumped a lot of money in. Uh, it was a bit of a circus, though, really, and it got progressively worse. And we ended up sliding down the championship from being promotion contenders to staying up on the last day, to protests against their ownership, and just some mad stuff was going on. Like they wanted to save money by buying the training balls from Asda. You know, those floaty balls you get on the
yeah,
beach. Just crazy stuff like that. I've interviewed a former manager, and he was saying he, turned up at training. There was 5 Kuwaiti players on trial, and he didn't know who they were, and it just wasn't any way to run a football club. So then the Marinakis family come in, and obviously they've got experience of running a big club in Olympiacos. But I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking for myself here. It's hard to remember the time. I think there was a certain amount, obviously excitement, but a little bit of caution, because we'd been there with other people. The previous owners would come in and made big promises, and had also pumped a lot of money in, but just misspent it wildly. So the Marinakis family came in, and as you know, Evangelos Marinakis is insanely ambitious, which has a lot of highs, and can, present challenges as well, I guess. But I think the ambition is a much bigger plus than anything else. But they came in and they spent a lot of money as well. They've got connection with George Mendes. They bought João Carvalho. A lot of Portuguese players came in with a lot of talent, but it didn't really work. I think the championships are very different league from the Premier League, very different league from the Greek league, and the money probably wasn't spent in the right areas, and we weren't really going anywhere. We flirted with the playoffs. A couple of times, Martin O'Neill came in, a club legend. The football wasn't good, and he moved on. And then Sabri Lamouchi came in, who played for France, and we should have got in the playoffs. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but on the last day of the season, we know there needed to be a defeat for us and a 6-goal swing for Swansea to get in. It was almost inconceivable, and of course, it happened during COVID. So that was like the biggest choke I can remember in football for a long time at that point. And then Chris Hughton came in, and these are all managers who you can make a good case for. Chris Hughton got Brighton promoted,
right.
but it just didn't work at all. I mean, he signed players who were really old, frankly. They had a lot of championship experience, but we were just not a team going nowhere apart from down. And then finally they got a chief executive in who knew English football. They got Steve Cooper in, who was a young, up-and-coming manager. Got some really good loan players in, and everything clicked and came together. We went from bottom of the league to Wembley and got promoted. And then I think, personally, this is where the Marinakis family came into their own, because they know top-level football more. And we signed. I mean, he really backed us with a lot of money. It was,
Yeah,
I think, there was, to an extent, it was betting everything on red, and signed a lot of players on good wages. I just did a podcast yesterday. Our wage bill was the highest for any promoted club ever. So they really, really went for it, and they had to to stay in the Premier League, because you look at the last 2 seasons, the clubs that have come up have been really awful and gone back down.
Yep.
And there was things like we had a good goalie in Dean Henderson, and we needed a goalkeeper, and then this was a signing by the owner. I don't like signings by owners, but this was a good one when he went out and got Keylor Navas, and that made a big difference. And we stayed up, and our recruitment, I think it's fair to say, I don't know if you discuss Forest recruitment much on here. It felt quite haphazard. We signed a ton of players for various reasons, but I felt you could see some of them just weren't going to work. But we got through it. And then the second season, I think we started signing a lot better players for what the project was. So Anthony Elanga came in, Callum Hudson-Odoi came in. We'd already signed Morgan Gibbs-White, which was a great signing, again, for a lot of money, but it would work out. And then this season, it really kicked off. We signed Nikola Milenkovic, Elliot Anderson, and other players that were here already, like Murillo, kicked on a gear, Matt Sells, everything. And it's all come together this season to get to where we are now, an FA Cup semi-final, and hopefully into Europe. And the owner wants us to be in Europe all the time, I think, which is really tough because there's so many big clubs in England. I think that's going to be really hard to achieve. But, I think some of the time, I think through force of will, some of these things just seem to be happening. And and we'll get into the blind trust stuff and everything. But it's been a roller coaster ride, and it was kind of started high, went down a bit, and now it's really just an upward curve for the last 3 years, basically.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch. I really started to pay attention to Forest that your season you guys got promoted. I couldn't watch the games for championship. They're not really available down here, but I was monitoring like the situation, reading the news. And then when you guys got promoted, it's funny, I saw a lot of parallels with what was going on at Olympiacos. You were talking about some of the haphazard signings, like signing names almost like just for the sake of getting a certain player, and it didn't really fit. Well, that's something we've been kind of used to at Olympiacos, but Olympiacos, we've always had the best team in Greece, especially in most cases, the most expensive team in Greece. So even maybe if some of those players didn't work out well, we still had more quality than anybody else. In England and the Premier League, it's a different story. These are teams everybody is a huge spender. You're not everybody has pedigree there, especially in the Premier League. You're up against some of the best teams in the world. So I think some of those tactics didn't work quite as well. And then while you guys were in that promotion stage, your first year in the Premier League, you're trying to stay up in the Premier League. You had your difficulties, we'll say, with Steve Cooper before Nuno came in. We were experiencing some similar issues because we had just gotten away from Pedro Martins, who was arguably the most successful manager at Olympiacos and the longest tenured, with being at the club over 4 years. And he kind of had this like catastrophic fall at the end of his career at Olympiacos. So while you guys were in this, you're in the Premier League, trying to stay up in the Premier League, you're having your struggles up and down there. We were experiencing the same growing pains, trying to get back to where we were, because we had a really bad season, that final season of Pedro Martins, even though we won the title. But then the seasons following, before Jose Luis Mendilibar came, it was a lot of, oh my God, just signing names, James Rodriguez, Marcelo, getting big names, Sime Versalico from Atletico Madrid, just for the sake of it. And then almost none of them really panned out. James Rodriguez half panned out, but and you were going through this back and forth, and then even to the point where we were trading players between each other. When you guys were in the championship, we were giving you a lot more players. Then when the Premier League, the promotion came to the Premier League, it came in reverse. You started giving us more players, and I don't think that really worked out for either team. I think the way they thought about how it could work in terms of the player pool, they went about it the wrong way. Because I think, I mean, maybe Cafu was probably the only player that really had,
I was going to say, yeah.
Probably,
I remember, Cafu was good, wasn't he? He did a good, solid job. But he wasn't a first-team player. He was kind of
right.
the guy who comes in when you need someone to play a game. And we had Boutchalakis was okay, and I think he went back and did better for you. And we got some
for a while.
It wasn't a fruitful relationship at all, I don't think, for either party. I mean, maybe it's changed now because you'll obviously know way better than me, but you've got Stamanic and Carmo and players like that. I don't know if they got. Well, I'm going to ask you this on a reverse interview, I guess, in a few weeks. But yeah, I don't think it's been the most fruitful relationship necessarily. And we, as you say, we were signing players, like we signed Jesse Lingard when we came up, and it wasn't a disaster because it was just a free transfer for 1 year. So we paid him a lot of money in wages. But Emmanuel Dennis has been a really bad signing, who I think was a panic buy after we didn't really have a forward. Divock Origi came in, another big name. We'd done well for Liverpool, but he was on the slide. And yeah, we've really changed our recruitment approach to be much more like, Brighton and Brentford were always cited, but more eyes on the ground. I think we've got a really good scouting network in South America and Europe and the Bundesliga and things like that. It feels much more forward thinking the last 3 years than, this guy's got a good CV, let's go buy him.
Right. No, it feels a lot more, and that's for Olympiacos too. I think what they've gotten right in the especially like this, starting from the last summer when we had tried a new sporting director, before Edu was ever rumored to be on the radar for the football group. The scouting, it was the pooling of the scouting resources. There was a lot more of that. And I think that's really where the value is in this football group, right? It's sharing the resources that for scouting. Okay, maybe the Forest team found a player that's good, but he's not what Forest needs. But hey, maybe this is a player that Olympiacos could use, or maybe this is a player that Rio Ave could use. I think now that we have Rio Ave, we have the pipeline, we have Marinakis is purchasing a controlling stake in the largest academy in Brazil to feed into that pipeline, to feed up into Forest or Olympiacos. I think the finds we've been making, especially in the last year, the summer last year for Forest was amazing. Look at the defense you guys built in that last summer, and it was same for us. We ended up getting some great players for our midfield, great defenders. A player that has been a club legend now for us. Really, we say he's the best signing we ever got from Forest was Julian Biancon.
Oh yeah,
injured.
People love him, don't they?
Yeah, we love him here. He is made for this club. He's got the personality, the mentality. Is he a first choice center back? No, he's third, fourth choice. But the guy bleeds red and white. I mean, from the moment he got here, he was injured when he arrived. I don't know if you remember.
But yeah, he got injured for us very early on. He had no luck at all, but he always looked like a good team guy who always bought in. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that.
Exactly. So he came to Olympiacos kind of like as a way to rehab, and then maybe the intention was for him to go back to Forest. I don't know. And now he stayed here. But everybody else that came, I don't think I count David Carmo as a Forest transfer, because like he was always coming to Olympiacos. Forest was just the financial vehicle to get him here. It was the purchase, and then the loan option, I'm sure, was a way that made it a net zero PSR hit. But he was another one that kind of this year disappointed for us. But like, the trading of players has not worked out, but it's the scouting, the shared scouting resources, which is really for you guys has found great players, for us has so far found great players. And I think that's the key with this whole thing. And I hope that's what the future is.
I hope so. I mean, obviously, if we're both in the Champions League, we can't trade between clubs anyway. That's one of the rules. So we'll have to have Stamanic and Carmo back, and I guess send them out elsewhere. But yeah, I think you're right. Hopefully, we've caught up with you, and if we're both in the top table of Europe, then it can be a really fruitful relationship. And then Rio Ave kind of a couple of levels below, but that's proved quite useful for us. We've sent a few players there, 3 or 4, I think. So it all works. And you mentioned obviously Sao Paulo as well, and Edu, and what that'll bring. And I wouldn't be surprised if they added another club somewhere else as well. They've been looking at a club in Serie A, haven't they, for quite a while. So I think they're always on the market for Monza, wasn't it? And I think Girona looked at briefly as well in Italy, in Spain. But yeah, I think they're always on the lookout to expand. And I don't know if you know as well, but in Nottingham, he's bought a franchise for a netball team that play out of the arena in the new Women's Netball Super League as well. So
I did not know that.
He's bought that. the women's team's gone professional, and he wants to make them a WSL team and in our top tier. So there's a lot of ambition around the whole project, around the stadium as well. Really redeveloping that. There was talk of moving, which fans really kicked off about, but there's a lot of plans to redevelop our stadium. So yeah, there's no standing still with the ownership that we've got.
No, and I mean, even we just kicked off this summer will be the first summer of training for the women's team, our women's football team. And I'm not sure how much you know about Olympiacos as a multi-sport club, but Olympiacos is the most successful multi-sport club in the world. Everything, handball, basketball, even though basketball is not under his ownership, but we have a lot of different sports that we're very successful in, and I think he wants to bring that over to Forest as well. Does Forest have other sports besides football, or is it just football?
No, just football. Just football. There's if you know the geography of the city, there's our ground. There's the other team in the city called Notts County who also play
Yes.
football, and then there's an arena where the ice hockey team play and the netball team. And I was kind of wondering if he'd buy the arena because they hold concerts there. It's a 5,000 seat arena, but I think it's a loss making venture. But maybe that will come in time. So he's bought the netball franchise, and then across the road from our ground is a cricket ground called Trent Bridge, which is one of the most historic grounds in the world. And there was some talk about him buying the 50% of the franchise for that plays out of there, called Trent Rockets. There's lots of different cricket teams that play around, but that wasn't the case. I don't think he ever did bid, but there's other clubs. Top Bolio owns Chelsea, have bought a club, and Indian teams have bought a club. But yeah, I don't think he'll expand it in that sense. But like I say, there's a lot of ambition to do other stuff and rebuild the training ground and excuse me, everything like that. But it's all Forest driven, I would say.
Wow. Yeah, he doesn't stop. He just wants more and more. And he doesn't just want you guys in the Champions League. He wants to win the Champions League.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
If this were before last season, I would have told you, okay, he has ambitions, but what's realistic? But after Olympiacos came back and won the Conference League, which is a competition my co-host and I have always said Greek teams should be able to compete and be very competitive in. I didn't actually expect to be able to win it. And then in the Europa League, we were missing two of our most important players, and we almost recovered a deficit that we never should have had against Bodo Glimt, who are in the semifinals now anyway. So the team is doing way more than I expected, and the ambition of Marinakis is contagious. Very contagious. And I think that goes the same for Forest as well. I watched a documentary when he first took over about changing the mentality at Forest. And I think I think everyone's bought into that. You guys want to win now. There's a lot of expectations to win, especially now that you're in the top four. So I would say that seems to have been the case.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of kind of playing catch up. Like when we got promoted, in terms of our mentality with his ambition. I mean, when we got promoted, he was at the celebration event saying, this is the start of a new chapter. We want to be in Europe all the time. And we were like, well, hang on, we've just been in the Championship, the second tier for 23 years. Like, steady on, one step at a time. But now we're there, and now he's, as you say, he's dreaming to win the Champions League. And to me, that still sounds a bit mad when you think of, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, those clubs. We've got a 30,000 seat stadium and we've got a really good team, but we haven't got a really good squad. We've been very half fortunate and, half you earn your luck, but we've not had many injuries this year and everything's come together and things like that. But if we get the new stadium or the improved stadium and we can compete with these teams on a more regular footing, then I think it's possible because like I say, our stadium's capacity is 30,000, but we could sell 40,000 for every game, or 50,000 arguably, but certainly 40,000. So yeah, I don't know what the ceiling is for Forest. Obviously we did win the European Cup at one point, and I don't know what the ceiling is for Olympiacos as well, playing in one of the relatively smaller leagues in Europe, whether you could win the Champions League or not, whether you could attract the players and whether we could attract the players. But you only need that perfect storm one season, and you never know. I think Leverkusen won a Champions League, didn't they? And Valencia might have, and Sampdoria got to a final, so it can happen. It's just, it takes a big imagination and a lot of buying and dreaming, I think.
It does. Let's talk about Marinakis's personality, and I guess maybe we can call it a little bit of a culture clash in England. we've read the headlines here every, when certain things happen, and maybe the rest of England or some of the reporters in England will see actions done a certain way, and because it's not how other owners act, they seem to use that as an opportunity to take jabs at Mighty Nikes. How have you, as a fan of Forest, kind of seen the way Mighty Nikes carries himself and the way he operates, and how media kind of depicts him in England?
Well, ownership of football clubs in England is very different now to what it was. Almost all the ownership of clubs now is based in America, Saudi Arabia, places like that. Marinakis as a personality is really different. He's a bit of a throwback to owners that we had over here in like the 80s and 90s in terms of big characters. So a guy called Sam Haman, who was owner of Wimbledon and then Cardiff, Ken Bates, who was owner of Chelsea, Doug Ellis, who was like nickname was Deadly Doug, and things like that in the 90s. You don't get that anymore. You don't get owners. I mean, a lot of owners don't go to games for a start. But he's obviously been at a lot more of our games the last 2 years, and certainly this season he's at almost all of them. He's got an area in the press box. He's got a big TV in front of him. I think he's on TV number 4. I think 3 got smashed up in frustration or joy, however you want to. Yeah. So he's obviously a very big character. I mean, he's a physically big guy as well, so you can't miss him. He has a presence about him, and he's a big character as well in terms of personality, and I think that probably puts a few noses out of joint among the establishments. Again, being ambitious, wanting to upset the apple cart, as an English saying, sorry, of other clubs, and put a few noses out of joint. So Forest fans mostly love it. There's some of it I like and some of it I don't like. I don't mind the pitch side stuff. He got banned for spitting on the ground near a ref, which isn't really cool, to be honest. And there was the infamous tweet about the Everton game, which went viral around the world and got us a big fine and things like that. And he was obviously involved in that. And I think our fans loved it. I don't think I did particularly, to be honest. But I think our fans, I mean, he's super popular with our fans. I think maybe he's the most popular owner in the country at the moment because of where we are and the money he's put in, and a lot of fans of other clubs, their owners don't back them. You think of Tottenham and Daniel Levy and Manchester United and all the problems that they've had. I mean, we've spent 177 million quid since promotion, or it's probably more than that actually. It must be well over 200. So yeah, Forest fans really love him now, but I think he does put establishment noses out of joint by doing things a different way, in a throwback way. The Premier League is so commercial, and everything is built around an image and things like that. And some of the way he, carries himself probably doesn't fit into that very staid, very commercial image. He's a bit of a rebel, I think. And Nottingham as well has this self-styled image as the rebel city. I mean, that is really part of our branding as a city, going all the way back to obviously Robin Hood and things like that. So in that sense, he really fits into that. And that's a cultural thing with music and fashion, fashion and everything like that. So he's probably a really good fit for Nottingham as a city, actually, as well, when I think about it.
Sounds like Greeks are a very good fit for that in general. It's so funny. You brought up that tweet, the Everton tweet, and we had one that we had a post we that went viral because of that. Because I remember we were like, "Oh, is this the first 1,000-word club statement that Forest fans or the Premier League has seen?" Because that's something in Greece that's not new. Like, especially last season, you would see you would see statements and social media posts firing off literally like every week. There would be 1 or 2 different clubs. It's been a little quieter this year. You've still seen it here and there, but I mean that's normal for how it's in Greek football, right? It's normal here. It's a lot more normal here to do something like that. So for him, and I'm sure the press team over at Forest toned down really what he wanted to say, because if you see the statements that come out from some Greek clubs here, they're a little bit more bombastic. And
well, he wanted to send that. I heard he wanted to send that at half time during the game, and at least he was persuaded to wait till the final whistle. to really put the cat amongst the pigeons when we lost the game. I think it got worse in the second half. Though we had an even worse penalty appeal go against us that VAR, the assessment panel, later did admit should have been a penalty. So yeah, we did have some pretty disastrous decisions go against us that day. But yeah, the things that you can do in Greece, and I see the footage in England as well. Owners on the pitch. Someone took a gun on a pitch or something like that. I can't even
That
remember
was
what
in
it
the
was.
Greek Cup final. That was oh my
It.
God,
Yeah.
that was Ivan Savidis, the Pontian owner, they say, Russian confidant of Putin.
Yeah.
That went on the pitch with a gun.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah,
man,
I mean, I
almost
don't
8
think
years
you
ago now.
I don't think you get that in a game between Southampton and Crystal Palace on a Sunday afternoon or anything like that. Certainly.
No, well, just last week, or sorry, not this past Sunday, the Sunday before Easter, there was an incident because we beat Ike at home and where we won the title, and Ike's owner complained about something and caused the scene in front of the media team. One of my co-hosts was actually there in the media area, got to see it, and just laughing about it. But yeah, you see stuff like this. There's a lot of drama in Greek football, so you see a lot of it there. We're a lot more used to it, so it's just funny to see when he does something in the Premier League and everybody reacts to it there. We're like, man, you guys need to come to Greece and see what happens here. So, but I'm glad that Forest fans like really, because he loves it there. You know that he spends a lot of time in England. I think he went to boarding school in Nottingham
Okay.
too.
Yeah. His son went to Nottingham Trent University as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. Yeah. I'll
So
ask you. Actually, I'll say the questions for you. I was wondering how Olympiacos fans feel about. He's more involved in Forest now than he was for a while. I don't know if they were pissed off about it or not, but maybe that's a question for our podcast. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it depends who you ask, because you have some people, they look at Forest and they say, "Oh, well, Forest, there's more money, so he's going to spend more time there. He's going to." When things were going bad here, that was the complaint, was that he was spending more time at Forest. But now I haven't really this season. I don't think you hear any complaints. We're doing well. We have the Conference League win. Players want to come here. Now we have Champions League. We've basically, I think the last formality is we need Arsenal. Well, they might probably not get past PSG, but as long as they get top 4, then we don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
So people are happy. When people are happy, they don't complain about it. But when things aren't going well, they have to look for the boogeyman, right? They have to look for the thing to blame when stuff is going wrong. So that's really, most of us are we see opportunities with the Forest ownership. So most of us see it as a positive thing.
Cool.
What is your So I want to ask you in 2 parts. What was like your 5-year outlook for Forest when you guys first got promoted, and whether or not to this point it's met or exceeded that expectation? And then I'll also ask you after this, well, from this point, what does the next 5 years look like for you?
When we got promoted, I think the 5-year outlook. I mean, probably just if we were still in the Premier League after 5 years unbroken, that would have been sensational. Even if we'd gone down, used the money to rebuild and come back up, and then been in the Premier League after 5 years, that'd still be amazing. So it's wildly exceeded expectations. We're 3 years in, so we'll see where we are in 2 years. But obviously, I have every confidence we'll be an established Premier League club by then, even if next year in Europe, because I'm sure we're going to get European football in some competitions. I'm sure of that. So even if we're not in Europe in 2 years, it's still been a big success. I think. I mean, the next 5 years, I don't know. It's difficult to answer, isn't it? I mean, my answer would still be the same. If we get to 2030 and we're still a Premier League club, then for me, I think I'd be happy with that. I think our fans would be. I mean, there's only room for 20 teams, and 17 of them at the moment are really established, and the teams that are coming up can't stay in there. So the longer that continues, the more money the 17 teams get through TV revenue, sign the better players each year. It becomes more and more of a closed shop. So we're in it at the moment. So that's great. I mean, every season only 7 or 8 teams can get into Europe, so you've got to be in the top third or so of the league. And then when you think of the teams in our league, we were talking earlier in the season, like, oh, if we're going to get into the Conference League, then you've got Liverpool, City, Arsenal, who are going to be in the top three probably. Chelsea, Aston Villa, Newcastle, who are really good. That's 6 teams straight away. Haven't mentioned Spurs or Man United, so that's 8, 9 teams. Brighton, Brentford, Fulham are all really good teams. So now you've named 12 teams there, and then you've got Palace and who are always there. So to finish above 4 or 5 of those, you've got to be exceptional. And this season we have been. So can we keep doing that for 5 years and keep getting better? Possibly. And I think I said it right at the start, almost everything comes down to recruitment. And I think it does. If we sell one of our star players this year or next year, and then another one in a couple of years, those being Morgan Gibbs White and Murillo at the moment, or Anthony Elanga, if we reinvest that money smartly, then I definitely think we can. And we have done that in last year. But if we go back to what you were saying earlier, let's sign a guy who's 29 or 30, who's got a good CV, but their best years might be behind them, and you roll the dice on big wages, then I'd worry that it might slide away. We've seen that in this country with Leicester City, when had a crazy wage bill, didn't sell at the right time, lost good players on free transfers like Yuri Tielemans. So I think it all comes down to recruitment and governance. And the last 2-3 years, it's been spot on. So if we carry that on, then I think established Premier League club in the top 10, pushing for Europe is probably what I think. The owner probably thinks higher and thinks Europe every year and pushing for top 4 every year. But that's a big, big goal for me still.
So my last question before we do the quick fire stuff that I have, do you think assuming you guys end in top 4, you get the Champions League spot, will fans expect to do that again next year, or will they say, okay, we overachieved, as long as we're top 10 or whatever, we're okay?
I don't think they'd expect to do it again because of all the teams I just listed who are in there every year. I think they would. I don't know. We always say these things like, oh, the first year up, we just want to compete and stay up, and the second year we want to, be 14th or something. We were 14th, and fans were unhappy, and we sacked Steve Cooper. Fans have a different outlook. You say something, and then when push comes to shove, and you lose 4 games in a row, everyone's not happy. So for me, and I think most fans would be this way, I certainly wouldn't expect a repeat of Champions League football. I would hope that we're top 10 or something like that. I mean, obviously being in the Champions League and balancing competing in the Premier League, when we currently have a small squad, we need to sign a lot of players. You see what Aston Villa have done in January. They went out and got Rashford and Asensio and Disasi and boosted their squad massively. And, they've had a year of Champions League football and they're really struggling to get back in at the moment. They might do it, but balancing the two, I think, is really tough. So for me, it would be have a run in the Champions League, try and stay in the top 10, and then the season after, can you go again with that better squad that you've got, would be my point of view.
I don't know how aware you are of any players at Olympiacos, but is there one player at Olympiacos that you think would be a decent fit for Forest?
Oh, I'd be lying if I said I'd seen a lot of them. I know you've got the striker who scored a ton of goals last year.
El Kabi, yeah.
And
this year too.
How old is he?
He is, I believe he's 30. I believe he's 31 now. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I could tell you in a second. 31. He is 31. Yeah.
You've got, and I don't know the names of the players. Sorry, you've got a couple of young kids who are super talented, haven't you? It's like
we have 2 wonder kids. Yeah. Mouzakitis is 18. Kostoulas is turning 18 soon. But we have 2 wonder kids that became starters. Mouzakitis is a deeper midfielder, and Kostoulas is like he can play anywhere in the front, on the wing. He can play behind the striker. He can be a striker.
So they're both what we need next
there you
season.
Go. Yeah. So our wonder kids.
We need a deeper midfielder and we need a forward. But then every club in Europe. Them because you don't have kids who are 17 and 18 playing regular football, especially next season going to the Champions League. So, I mean, do you think you could keep them for one more year and then you worry that a mega club's going to come in for them, or are you worried they'll go this summer?
No, so Mouzakitis already said no to Dortmund. Dortmund came in with a formal approach. He said no. And, for Kostoulas, we're not listening. There's only like 2 or 3 clubs that I'm aware of that can offer the money or that would be willing to offer the money that we're asking for him. And he's
Mm.
also made it pretty clear the kids want to play Champions League with Olympiacos. This summer, I'm not worried, but next summer, I don't think we can hold on to him, especially
No.
depending how they do. If they do well, there's no way. I don't think we can hold on to him.
I think obviously the interesting thing with Forest in relation to that is the owner is moving his players to be his players somewhere else if that
Right.
happens. But again, I think we'd need to be in Europe at the, even the Europa League probably wouldn't be enough for them. So maybe we've missed out by a couple of years. But I know the English fans over here have noticed those two young lads, but I don't see that much of them. And the only other players I'm familiar with are Stamanic and Carmo, and you've already told me Carmo's been a bit of a disappointment, which is worrying because we kind of have him earmarked to be Murillo's replacement in a year or two if Murillo goes to a Real Madrid or a Liverpool or things like that. So that's slightly worrying.
Carmo's more he has all the talent in the world. It's all here
Yeah.
with him. It's more about his focus and mentality. But he has, as far as like talent goes, he's probably the most talented center back, especially most talented one on the team. But he has to be, if he's not focused, it's not there for him, unfortunately.
No, you don't get away with that in the Premier League, unfortunately. Murillo's been brilliant. He got caught out for against Everton, and we lost a game we couldn't really handle losing. So yeah, we'll see how he goes.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, now that we're coming to the end, thank you again. It's been 40 minutes here. I didn't mean to keep you this long, but I appreciate your time. We do just 5 really quick questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just to get to know you a little bit better. What's your favorite food?
Oh my gosh, I love food. I do all the cooking at home. No, I know I'm supposed to say the first thing that came into my mind. I mean, probably a really good steak dinner. I would say if it's properly seasoned, cooked with butter, garlic, thyme, good cut of meat. I would say
Any
that
particular cut that you like?
ribeye. I like a
Ribeye. I
ribeye.
was going to ask. Okay, that's a good one. Now, how about a favorite movie and favorite show?
Ooh. So favorite TV show. Can I give multiple answers and then can I pick one?
Go ahead.
I would. Uh, so I would say TV shows, Band of Brothers, if you've seen that, The Expanse, Battlestar Galactica, some sci-fi in there. They're really good. I liked Game of Thrones until the last series, and then it fell off a cliff. So I'm listing a lot there. I mean, I watch Band of Brothers every few years, so I'd probably say that. Have you seen Band of Brothers?
I haven't, no, but I was young when Battlestar Galactica was out. I remember like that being like middle school, high school, seeing that
Yeah,
all over the place.
yeah, that was cool. Movie. I don't know. I mean, when I was at university, Lord of the Rings came out, and I watched that a lot. I'd probably say that, but I think that's there's clutches of films that you'll watch over and over again. That um, that really some of them are really crap as well. There's one called The
Yeah,
13th Warrior, which is a terrible film
I've
with
seen it.
Antonio
I've seen it.
Banderas. Me and my
Yeah,
brother love that. It's rubbish,
I
but we've
love it
watched it
too. It's a
loads.
great
Yeah.
movie.
So, yeah, so stuff like that. I mean, actually, Jurassic Park is probably the one I could watch tons of. The first Jurassic Park, it was that one. I'll say the Jurassic Park. I'll say.
What about your favorite vacation spot?
So I think I don't these especially quick fire questions, aren't they? We don't go to places multiple times very often, but there's a family have got a place in Lanzarote, which we went to last week. That's really nice. If you like a chilled out holiday where you don't do anything, just sit by the pool and read books. If not, then I love Barcelona and the architecture of Barcelona, Sagrada Familia, sitting down by the port, by the harbour in the port, and having a cold beer near the beach. So yeah, Barcelona. I'd love to go back there. I haven't been since we had kids. So once my kids are older and want to go there, or are old enough they can look after themselves and don't want to go there, me and my wife will be back to Barcelona, I'm sure.
I know that feeling. I have 2 young ones right now too, so trust me, I get it. I
How
get
old
it.
are they?
4-2.
Oh, you're way off. Mine are 11 and 8. So yeah,
Oh, there you go.
you'll have more grey
I
hair in a couple of years.
I think I have more gray hair than you do at this point.
I'm not sure.
What about your favorite football-related memory? It could be
Oh,
Forest, it could be anything, doesn't matter.
oh no, it's definitely Forest. I'm not like I'm an England fan, but I'm not a mega England fan. Well, obviously promotion at Wembley, people are going to say, but it would be the semi-final before that against Sheffield United. You without your listeners probably don't know the history of us in the playoffs, but we'd lost so badly in the playoffs to get into the Premier League so many times. When the most painful game was against Sheffield United in 2003 when we should have won. We had a great young team, and then 4 years later, we got 4 or 5 years later, we've been relegated to the third tier, and we lost to a team called Yeovil, who now aren't even in the English league, and we lost to them. One of our players, who's a good friend of mine, who's on the podcast regularly, got sent off in that game, and we just fell apart. And then we lost 2 more playoff ties with guys who also come on the podcast as regulars who were in those teams. So we were so near. So to finally do it in 2022, we won the playoff semi-final in a penalty shootout. And, that was so nerve-jangling. We had the goalkeeper, Brice Samba, putting like one of the all-time great performances there. So to win that penalty shootout, I think it always leaps off the page for me as the main personal one. But the other one as well, I was throwing quickly, was when we were in the Premier League, my daughter's getting into Forest a bit. It's really hard to get tickets for both of us together, but she came to when we beat Man U at home in December 2023. So we were struggling a fair bit, and we beat Man U, obviously a big club, and she loved it. And to see her celebrating the goals was like probably the other one. I would put those two as the moments that spring to mind.
Those are fantastic memories, and I expected the promotion part to be the one. So, but yeah, sharing that with your kids, I can't wait till my kids get old enough to where they're, if one of them loves Olympiacos, that would be crazy to share with them.
Don't take them too soon. I think it set me back trying to take them when they were like 4 or 5. I had to wait again until they were 8 or 9 to develop any kind of interest.
There you go. I will. I'll take that advice for sure. So, last quick fire round. If money wasn't a problem, where would you go?
Oh, in the world?
Yeah, anywhere in the world.
I would go to somewhere in the Far East, sprung to mind, like Japan or Korea or something like that. Off the top of my head, my son really wants to go there. He's only 8, but he's obsessed. He wants to go to Japan and Korea for some reason. that was what sprung into my mind. Yeah, I don't know where else I would go. I used to want to live in America, but I don't really want to live in America right now. So yeah, no, I'll say the Far East, something like that.
Yeah, that's actually, I don't think anyone's ever brought up Japan or Korea before. So you're the
Where's
first one.
do they say like space and things like that, or another planet?
You know what? The answers I expect never happen. But people have come up with all sorts of, some want to go some like very deep in the mountains. Some people want to go see the penguins, like in Antarctica. So you get some, everybody wants to go. Everybody has a completely different idea of like where they would want to go. So it's really cool.
Something I've not experienced before. So somewhere in the Far East, because I've been to Europe, I've been to the States, places like so something completely different.
That makes sense. Well, Matt, thank you again so much. I've had you here almost an hour at this point, so it's been a lovely chat. Guys, again, you can follow Matt at Forest Focus. That's the name of the podcast. He's on social media. Matt, do you have any other projects, or is there anywhere else everybody can follow you?
Oh no, Forest Focus takes up all the time in the world. We're on YouTube, all the Apple, Spotify, all those places. I think I'm at Matt Davies _FF on Twitter, or X, I should say, if anyone wants to follow me. But no, it takes up all my time. No, really enjoyed this, actually. I know you've apologized for taking more time than you said, but I know it's been really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And guys, don't forget to look out. We have more giveaways coming up on Instagram, so keep an eye out for that. There's 3 games left in the season for Olympiacos as well. More interviews coming up and a lot more action for you. I'm Adi. This is Thedos International, by the fans, for the fans.